Yo guys, it's the kid, 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 it's your boy here, Double H, half star hope man. So guys, look man, this is gonna be an hour one, and we only have one topic. This is just the one topic that we're gonna try and delve into for the best part of an hour. So it is what it is. So we'll try and get our thoughts on this whole crazy, crazy, crazy Capitol Hill thing with Trump and so forth. So I'm just gonna get right through it, and then I'll hand over to Hitman and Tony. So look, it's been funny though. So looking at the stuff that's been happening and everything, I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy in a sense of you have dudes who literally broke into a government building and federal building. Probably will probably get into Ashli Babbitt maybe midway through this, but I just think like it's just quite insane that you didn't think it would happen, that a leader of the strongest nation in the world could somehow lead what could almost be a coup. So again, this is just optics as to damn, these guys were literally trying to stop this vote, and they were believing the narrative coming from Trump, and we'll get there because see what has been interesting about this is that see for me, I'm not on the left. I'm not on the right. I'm on the side of truth. I'm on the side of truth. And what has been interesting, which is why I want us to have like an open conversation about this, is I don't know whether you want to call them conspiracy theorists or just people who have perhaps an alternative view on events. Because on Instagram, I've literally had a situation where people have said that, oh, this was staged, that this was a setup, that this was led by Antifa. So these are people dressing up, pretending to be pro-Trump people because they want to stage a coup that could lead to Trump's removal as president, And guys, and like, again, Martin Rosario, you know who you are. Martin Rosario sent me something on Instagram where they were interviewing this independent Japanese reporter lady, where she said that, she was pointing out the oddities and the inconsistencies with regards to the pro-Trump people, and like this guy who was sort of like changing clothes, and just says, things just look very suspicious with regards to how these pro-Trump supporters were operating. So, see, for me, like, I hate these kinds of conspiracy theorists and everything because I'm one of those guys where no. I don't believe the moon landing, not because of a conspiracy, because no, I just don't believe it. It's based on what I believe are facts. So until they give me full-on hard evidence, facts, and so forth, sending me surveillance footage and videos, it's like, it's all very, very blurry, man. But let me just get guys' general thoughts on this, man. So let me even bring in, first of all, your boy Hitman. So hit me with the double barrel, your thoughts on the events and how they got carried out, and is there any kind of credence to this perhaps being staged or set up by Antifa or another kind of organization?
All I'm gonna say is that numbers don't lie. They've they've arrested over 95 people, and not a single one of them had any links to Antifa. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The majority of arrests have been avid Trump supporters. The interesting thing is that they've been all part from all walks of life, because a lot of people were thinking that the group of people that the people that did this, because when you notice this, and let's not call this a riot, first of all, to get this out of the way, this was not a riot. This was an insurrection. Also, and part of it was a coup. I mean, a coup d'état. Coup d'état, basically trying to take over, trying to use force to control to control the actual outcome of the election, or control the government. So yeah, just let's skip that. 95 arrests. They were all basically, they were all walks of life. I mean, you're talking, but the majority was that 99% of those arrests were white. All of them were white. They were all white. These were all. These were all. I mean, basically, you're talking military. I mean, you've got everything from police officers to military to just like common workers, and They had everything ranging from people who had like no experience, who had no skill or experience or expertise in this type of thing, to people who did have expertise in type of thing. And one thing I also want to put out there though is that one of the reasons why one of the hypotheses to why I think a lot of people didn't mask when they went in and conducted all the criminality they did there was because they felt they were doing the right thing. But then again, that really blew up in their face. And there's about and FBI I think says there's about 300 to 400 people that are currently on a FBI no-fly list. And there's videos out there of people like getting rejected at the airport while about to get snatched up by the cops.
Delicious videos.
There could be up to 400 to 500 arrests by the time this is all like figured out.
All right, so let me bring you, boys. So, Tony, what about you? Your thoughts on the whole thing, specifically thoughts of the conspiracy theory saying that this could be staged, or this may not be all that it seems.
So I would say this. I think that it is a very confusing time in general, but I think that the framing behind all of this is very hypocritical. I think to use Obama's terms, I think that there are definitely thugs involved and definitely gangsters, if you will, that sort of, ping people to, act on their mobster-like tactics. I think in general, I think there were multiple factions involved. I think that there were people who were genuinely Trump supporters. I think that there were people who were strong Republican supporters. I think that there were some people that wanted to go there to participate in some sort of revolution for sure. And I think that when you have destitute individuals who honestly have turmoil in their life and they are destitute, I think that they act in the same way as we have seen with Black Lives Matter protesters who have nothing to lose, essentially, who ideally blame all of their problems on the opposing party. And I think that the treatment, the rhetoric behind how we look at this as some sort of singular event, I think is very harming to the truth and reality of it all. I think how quickly we forget that it was just in November that Trump was hiding in a bunker because people had breached the White House, or the White House grounds rather. And
that's actually not true. That was debunked. They didn't.
Yeah, that's not true at all.
They didn't breach the White House. They didn't even get past the gate, man.
So we're going to say that he was not in his bunker. Okay.
So
no. At the same time, so I would say this. Okay. So even if we throw that out the window, I was reminded yesterday that even when there were riots and protests against Brett Kavanaugh, that even Amy Schumer was arrested because they had somewhat tried to take over the Capitol as they were trying to confirm him. And it was mute as far as the response to that. And even at that time, they were in a Republican's office and sitting there and sort of housing his seat. And the response to that was, it was acceptable because there were some moralistic grounds on whatever the Democrats saw in general. And I think that there has been a complicit disrespect for the hierarchy in general for our leadership. I also am distinctly reminded about Maxine Waters explicitly saying, hey, when you see a politician for what, I forget what the actual cause was that she was actually spousing out this stuff, but she was saying something to the effect of, when you see a politician in your restaurant, blah, 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 tell them that they're not welcome here, tell them they're not this, and treat them in a certain way until you get what you want to get done. And I think that in terms of how media outlets have tried to phrase this as, oh, this is not America, this is not who we are. America from its foundation has been violent to get exactly to where it is, from how we interacted with Native Americans to how it's treated African Americans to any minorities. And anytime that we want someone to, quote unquote, achieve democracy, we have done it through violence. The fact that we have normalized Confederate enthusiasts to continue to reenact the Civil War, what do you think that they were thinking in their mind Like this idea that like, oh, because of Trump, now all of a sudden they think that there's going to be another civil war. They've been practicing for years and we have accepted it. And nobody has said a word or a peep. They get married at plantations. Meanwhile, like even in New York, there are houses that are identified as Underground Railroad places.
So,
and they're just demolishing them. And I think
for you, Tony, so the key thing is that this never, so this doesn't surprise you. The violence and the aggression of these guys was not surprising to you.
And I think the shock of all of it is appalling because this has been happening. They tried to kill the Michigan governor, did they not? They took over the Oregon Capitol. They time after time, we have seen these things happen. And because this is associated or attached to Trump, now all the focus is on Trump, as if get Trump out and everything will be okay and everything will be normalized.
So the thing about it is that a lot of that is rhetoric. I mean, because if you think about those people that tried the kidnapping attempt against Megan Whitmer, those people were like, the message that Trump posted on Twitter afterwards was he was criticizing Megan Whitmer. He didn't really actually even talk about the guys who committed the crime. He didn't say that was a terrible thing, that this type of terrorism shouldn't be tolerated. The other thing too is that just like that, the National Guard was deployed within 24 hours. Anytime that Black Lives Matter had a protest, whether peaceful or violent, like there were cops out there. They were bringing out the paddy wagons and getting ready to like do mass arrests. They were arresting people on the fucking spot. And the thing is that, and that's one thing that people don't get, was that there was a little bit, and I'm actually going to take something back too, because
actually, because we're tight on time, I want to just make sure that everybody just quickly has their piece that we can then round off. So let me come to Daniel now, and then I'll allow to round off. So Daniel.
Hitman can finish. What I have to say isn't that much different than Tony, if I'm honest. So if he has a great point, I'd like to hear it.
Because we're an hour, I just want everyone just to have their piece. Then I'm going to then circle back to everyone. So I'm going to go to you then to MD.
If I could go quickly then, like the three things maybe that stood out to me were like there was an ITV report. If anybody knows what ITV is, that's maybe in America or whatnot. It's like a British news company. And there's
ITV in America?
No, I'm kind of explaining what ITV is because people might not know what that is, but it's like a British company and news network or whatever it is, a TV channel, and they had a reporter who was like in the crowd with the people who were in the Capitol building, and the way that he was talking about or interviewing people and talking about the situation, you get into those Queen's English tones, and the people here, they're going through whatever the accent is, but like the way he was talking about it, if you closed your eyes and you weren't paying attention to like the proper nouns, but you were just listening to the tones, you would think he was talking about Somalia or Botswana. Well, actually, Botswana's pretty stable. Cameroon, or just some place that wasn't America. Just the stereotypical whenever Americans think Africa. Obviously it's like 54 countries, or 55. But it was listening to that report was like, damn, like it's finally gotten to a place.
Wait, which report? Which report?
It's from it was from a news network called ITV. It's like a 7-minute.
The British, yeah.
That video, it was startling. But again, I agree with Tony. Like none of this is surprising. It might be shocking, but when you investigate it, it's not necessarily surprising. The second thing I thought of when I saw it was, I think Tony mentioned this as well. Like there was a standoff in Oregon. I think in 2016, there was a guy called Bundy. They took over like a wildlife place in Portland.
Clive and Bundy.
This guy.
It was the Bureau of Land Management tried to manifest destiny his fucking property or some. It's like
so basically, it was 40 dudes in this government facility for like 40, 60 days, 50 days, something like that, and one person died. One person. Like if this was you pick a group of anybody that's not white, anybody that's not just white American, and they take over a federal building, 40 of them for 60 days, they're gonna give them pizza or whatever the hostage protocol is. Like that's not happening. You know, so that's the first thing. It's just like the idea that it's, you know, you can talk about privilege and just like how white people just perceive things, or just how the country is structured for them to just behave however way. And I don't necessarily have a problem with how they behave. It's more that I wish I had the license to do what you were able to do. Like if that's what freedom is, allow us to do that. If in the event that it's necessary. So that was the second thing. Just Oregon came up for whatever reason. Third thing, lastly, the guy with the Confederate flag. I mean, we could go into the history of why, you know, the South was allowed to do what the South was allowed to do. You get Reconstruction, and then the period after Reconstruction where they take the troops out of the South and the KKK arrives and all that kind of stuff. And that allows the kind of lost cause of the Confederacy narrative to propagate in the South. We can get into that if we want. But the idea that this guy carries the Confederate flag through the U.S. state capitol, I don't think that ever would have happened in the Civil War. I think, although Richmond and D.C. seem fairly close to each other, that never would have happened.
The first time that the Confederate flag was in that capitol was that schmuck.
So
he should get a. I mean, they're still looking for that one guy. They haven't. He's one of the few guys from like most of the pictures that actually hasn't been arrested.
Do they have the lectern guy? Do they have that?
They got
lectern. He's got 5 kids. He's
not smiling anymore.
But you know what? The irony for me anyway is that the Confederate flag might as well be the American flag. To me, at least, that's the way I view it. Like, I don't see some stark difference between the two flags. It's still red, white, and blue.
Oh, there's a difference.
Oh, no.
Even in terms of like the actual country, there's a huge difference between that mentality and the mentality of the Confederate flag.
This guy.
Yeah, that guy hasn't been arrested.
My favorite part was
actually,
wait.
If we want to get factual here, like
then they don't hit the guy's face, man. Come on.
Well, if we want to get factual, if you look up that's not the actual Confederate flag.
That's the battle flag of Virginia.
That is the battle flag for the Confederacy. The actual Confederate flag is fairly hard to distinguish between the actual American flag, which is why the Confederate Army had to use that in battle, because people were shooting at each other, not knowing which side was which.
But that's not even the battle flag of the entire Confederacy. That's the battle flag of a particular regiment in Virginia.
I'm sure.
So, But my point is that
the Northern Army of Virginia was like the main. This is getting in the weeds, but just that picture, it's ironic. I'll leave it there.
Hey, HH, I gotta, if I may, there's a particular donkey of the day that's in the comments right now, and I need to for the sake of everyone's intelligence. I need to point it out. So if you go back, AJ, right? So he says the hypocrisy of both sides is crazy. Just a few months ago, the left were rioting. So I wouldn't necessarily call it the left. I would say it was people who were tired of seeing people who shared their skin fucking being murked and then the cops getting away with it. And that's number one. But yeah, that next comment that you just highlighted, the left said 2016 was rigged, Russia. The right said 2020 is rigged. Here's the motherfucking difference, donkey. One has proof, and the entire, I don't know, fucking planet, every intelligence agency on Earth agreed, oh yeah, Russia did it, and here's the proof. People went to jail for it. People admitted to it. It happened. No one said that 100% of the election in 2020 was clean. They're just saying it wasn't enough to affect the outcome of it. But here you go. You're talking about, the left is saying it wasn't rigged. Now they're saying it wasn't rigged. Yeah, because it motherfucking wasn't, genius. It's like people like this are why there are warning labels on things, right? Because they lack the ability to critically think. One does not have proof. We're on the left side, we're on the right side. Like, fucking A, man.
Sorry, I would like to say something in AJ's defense.
Don't.
No.
Oh,
no. Let's hear. We have to hear all sides. Let's hear all sides.
The thing. I think that for Trump's entire presidency, to AJ's point, we heard time and time again about Russiagate. Now, that's not to say that I believe or disbelieve, sure. But I think that at the same time, again, the facts are that there are American gangsters that we call politicians that time after time steal elections, i.e. Bernie Sanders, i.e. Stacey Abrams. We see this bluntly done in our faces, and there are no protests in regard to these things. Like, we say little things and then we get over it, and then we allow the politicians to pick and select who they want, whether it be Hillary or Joe Biden. And I think that that's the point that he's trying to make. And I think
that's not the point he's trying to make.
The thing about this is that
let's
jump in.
I think what the point that I'm trying to get to is that I think that because of that, that is the grounds for the people that were active at the Capitol. They should be arrested. The fact that they were trying to disturb an electoral college vote, they should be arrested for that. But I also believe that there are some people who are particularly ignorant about the process of elections and the government in general and how it's run and things of that nature. And again, I think that whether it be Trump and other Republicans, i.e. Ted Cruz, I don't think that Trump is solely responsible. I think that there are active Republicans who also incited this, i.e. I don't know if you guys heard, but they're trying to insinuate that Clarence Thomas's wife was praising this, but also funded some busload of people to come down there to the Capitol. So there are active participants who, outside of Trump, also just want a Republican president, period. And I don't think that it is fair to just say, oh, it's just Trump. And I think that that ultimately is the problem with like trying to say like, oh, if we just get rid of him off of social media, then that's the end. 74 million people, over 74 million people voted for this man. And Biden only won by 4.5%. This was not some landslide election. So this idea that if you just get rid of this guy, I don't understand.
Hang on. I got to rebut.
Okay. Let me respond.
So your point. I get where you're going from. Here's why you're wrong. You have Stacey Abrams in her situation. Yes, Brian Kemp 100% cheated, right? Bernie Sanders, the DNC 100% fucked him over and rigged it against him. That's true. You want to know the main difference between that and 2020? Proof. You can legitimately 100% find the proof of both of those instances. You can find zero proof of Trump being cheated. Also, when his lawyers themselves were in court and had a chance to talk to the judge and say, here's our evidence of fuckery, here's the proof. The judge straight up asked Rudy Giuliani, was there fraud involved here? Are we talking fraud? Rudy Giuliani said, no, we're not talking fraud. Hey, look at all of these affidavits that I have. They have no proof. That's the difference. Everybody, you can go back and you can quantify how they screwed Stacey Abrams, moving around the districts. A voter, they disenfranchised the voters. They shut down polling centers in Black communities. You can find that proof. You can find zero proof to that level that 2020 that it was done that way. You can find proof that here in Texas, where I am, that they shut down entire voting precincts and made it so that absentee ballots could only be collected at one place for the entire county. Shit like that happened. You can find proof that they tried to cheat for Trump.
But here's the thing. Here's the kicker of it all. The kicker is that the fact that it has happened before and that this is not new, that automatically places doubt in the average American person that any of this is going the right way or that any of this is actually working how it is supposed to work. So again, you have people who are actively Republicans who hate Democrats because of whatever trading policies and jobs going away and whatever immigration policies, and they automatically hate immigrants, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to always dislike Democrats. And they're going to always think that Democrats have ulterior motives. And the problem, again, with this two-tiered system is that nobody is ever going to trust the other side. And I think, again, and the thing that I wanted to address with Sam Jovi is I don't even want to compare Black Lives Matter protests with what happened at the Capitol. I think that we diminish what Black Lives Matter was trying to accomplish when they were protesting. We diminish the turmoil that led them to act and behave in the way that they did. I think that they were completely justified in terms of in terms of protest, not like destroying their cities and whatnot. And I think the difference between a Black Lives Matter protest and what happened at the Capitol is that what happened at the Capitol is those white people went and addressed the people that created the problem that they see in their mind. Instead, we unfortunately just stick to our neighborhoods and do whatever we have to do and not even get anywhere near the politicians who are actually writing the bills and things of that nature.
Okay.
I want to
because I want to get into this right now, and maybe you can put it, but I really want to get your thoughts on this because this is really important. So here's the thing right now. Trump. So my thing here is this, and I was on J Electronica's Discord arguing with someone about this when it happened. And we're having an argument about censorship. And this is what I said. So this guy said, I'm against all censorship. It's what he said. Then I said to him that, okay, you're against all censorship, cool. So if a Hitler-type person has a Twitter account and he has millions of followers and he's constantly tweeting that he wants all blacks lynched, killed, raped, and mutilated, and he wants to start a race war. And he's easily been able to communicate and coordinate with his racist followers to start a race war. Should he then be allowed to tweet? Then said, no. Don't you put words into my mouth. I never said that. I said, whoa. But isn't it a logical deduction that if you said that you're against all censorship, which is what his words were, you're against all censorship, then you should have no issue with a popular racist leader wanting to start a race war to exterminate all black people. So in this instance now, you see, here's my thing, because Ray made a very good point, because Ray said that, so Twitter are a private company that have guidelines. Twitter isn't a government-led open source company, so if you don't comply by their guidelines, it's cool. But then Angela Merkel, German Chancellor, she said that this is very dangerous for Twitter and Facebook to sort of shut down or censor a world leader, and it could be a slippery slope. So, to come to Hitman with this, where do you stand with this shutting down of Trump's Twitter?
Okay, to talk about your example, I would have went a bit further than just a leader that says racist things. I would have said, how do you feel about somebody saying that I know where you live and I'm going to kill you and I'm going to kill your kids? That would really change somebody's opinion about censorship. But I digress. So like when you're talking about in regards to Donald Trump, the matter was that it was a matter of implication, whether it's how that looks on your brand, having this guy on. Yeah, he does bring you a lot of views, but the problem is that not a lot of those views are the right ones that you want. Do you want to create a positive environment, or do you want to create a toxic environment? And there's two arguments. I'm going to cover both of them, which is the argument for banning him and the argument against. Because a lot of people who argue for him, they basically say, hey, the argument for him is that this guy is dangerous. This guy is posting all this negative rhetoric, spreading conspiracy theories. The other thing too is also that he is also the point that is that it's a private business. It's a private business, and it's not consistent when you're telling people that a company that makes cakes can refuse to offer service to a gay couple to make a gay wedding cake for them. I mean, that's the big analogy a lot of people are using. The other thing too is also the whole point of why this ban was done, which is violence. But the other side is basically a lot of the conservatives say stuff like conservative voices aren't being heard, blah, 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 blah. But when you look at the alternative, which was Parler, which was like basically conservative Twitter, they were shut down because I don't know if you looked at some of the scans from that site, but people were posting stuff about like literally committing acts of violence, coordinating times to commit acts of violence, like trying to and putting specific targets. I mean, with people, with places, with things. I mean, like it's a cesspool, like a literal cesspool.
See, just very, very, very quick on your point. See, the thing about it is that this isn't going to stop anything, because remember, a world existed before social media. So Trump can just organize a rally and so forth and still coordinate.
Exactly.
But this just makes it difficult to coordinate. But this doesn't stop anything. It just makes it much more difficult. But this isn't stop anything. So,
but that's the whole point about it. I mean, like, because you could talk about the same thing with guns and gun control, because a lot of people in America talk about guns and gun control. Like, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to kill you, they will kill you. But the difference between having a gun and not having a gun is that if you don't have a gun, it's a lot harder to kill you. A gun makes it, like, if I wanted to kill 5 people and I have like an assault rifle, I could kill 5 people within a matter of seconds. If I have a knife, I mean, I basically have to like go through and fight people, and it's going to take a long period of time. You can't kill somebody with one stab unless like you get them in the right spot, and even after that, they're still not immediately dead. The difference as well, though, is when you talk in regards to social media. If I'm trying to spread a message to coordinate some criminal activity, it's a lot easier to basically send that message over something like Parler or Twitter and just quickly send the message within a matter of seconds versus like trying to find the roundabout way of people who are like-minded like me. Because a lot of cases, these people aren't coordinating with people that they know. They're coordinating with strangers. That's the reason why like that whole, like literally that whole thing that happened at the Capitol, those were a bunch of people from all over the US. And they were linking through all this stuff. Like they were linking not just through that, but through 4chan and through Reddit and through all sorts of stuff. And it makes it easy when you have a social media platform so you can get the message across, and then people start sending you private messages. Obviously, there's the risk of like federal law enforcement tracking you down, but that's a given.
All right, Tony.
So here's my thing about this. Trump is a celebrity. He is also a part of the elite class. So when we talk about, removing him from social media, when we talk about trying to silence him in any way, we automatically have this assumption, again, that we're just going to upend these 74 million people that voted for him. If he's not speaking, his followers are going to speak. And I think that, in a sense, we create deities out of these celebrities, so they are going to be followers to the end of time. And I think that he's going to make even more money. Even the argument about, let's impeach him because then he can never run for president. Before he even became president, he was paying for politicians to get in place to do exactly what he needed to do for business. So how silly are we to assume that just because he doesn't have a title that he's still not influencing? And even the richest people in America still have the most influence, period. Now, in terms of silencing people on social media, I say we live in a surveillance state. Even in the times of Martin Luther King Jr., in the times of Malcolm X, if the FBI wanted or knew that there was a threat in their mind that they wanted to actually attack and go after, they knew what to do to get to those people. And America is not stupid. It knows that the KKK exists. It knows that there are racists. Now, in the media, it wants to play like they don't know, or that they're not aware of where these people are and how they operate and how they move and all of those things. But I think ultimately now, let them talk. Let them be on display. If they're stupid enough to plan things out on social media, on Reddit, however, we need them to be fully exposed by all means. And just like what happened at the Capitol when they weren't wearing a mask because they were entitled and they felt that they were not going to be arrested or lose their jobs and things of that nature, we need people to continue to be that stupid. We need people to continue to be that stupid.
Okay, but Tony, let me ask you a quick question. Okay, you are right in that. Out in the open, let's see what everyone is doing. Honesty is the key thing. But Tony, just put yourself in the mindsets of Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg. Literally, their mind, specifically their business mind and their bottom line mind and the profit mind. Do you still think that they should still have allowed Trump to say what they wanted to say on Facebook and Twitter, knowing that if things go left, people will now look to you and say, hey, if only you had ... this wouldn't have happened. So if you put yourself in the minds of Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg, did they make the right decision or the wrong decision?
Again, here's my thing. We keep trying to single out certain factions or certain entities. It's a mixture of all. And I think that now that there's this argument that, hey, they're this private company, blah, blah, blah. again, even as a private company, they're still funding different politicians. They're still lobbying for certain rules and regulations so that they can get rid of their competition as well. So I don't believe that they are working or operating from a moral standpoint. They just want the most active sites as possible and the popularity from that. And I think that in terms of blaming Twitter or blaming Facebook for these platforms, again, Trump is not the only one speaking in these terms. There are literally now, I mean, not to say that every Trump supporter is just an outright racist, but we've now made it synonymous with that, right? And I think that people speak in similar terms and speak in similar fantastical ideals of like, oh, the election was rigged and things of that nature. So again, you get rid of one person, like, what about the rest of them? And I just think that it's counterproductive.
All right, Daniel?
If I could double back, because like I've got some stuff written down. I'll go quickly. Tony made a point earlier about, you know, I'm blanking on the point, but it boiled down, at least when I heard it, that whiteness has a right in America. Not that I'm saying this is correct, but this is the application to a form of righteous indignation that blackness has never been afforded, because there's a historical record of violence whenever black people righteously act on whatever transgressions they've had. So I think if you look at the reaction to this, like, you could go to Baltimore, you could go to Ferguson, like the act that like tanks came out in some of those downtown cities, I thought was really interesting, and that wasn't applied to the Capitol. For Trump, you see, I don't think Twitter's wrong necessarily. I've kind of boiled this down to like, Twitter doesn't equal free speech, you know? Like, Twitter isn't a right. Like, you know, you aren't born, like, you know, your mom doesn't birth you and then they give you a Twitter handle. You know, like, you it's not a guaranteed right. Not saying that free speech should necessarily be a right depending on where you live, but Trump or whoever it was, I'm not going to assume some 60-year-old person like knew exactly what they were doing when the account was created, but like, there are terms and conditions. We all accept the terms and conditions. Nobody here, unless you're maybe somebody will admit to it. Have you ever sat down and read the complete terms and conditions for Twitter?
No one does.
You just click accept, you give them your phone number, your email, or whatever the case may be. But in those list of terms and conditions, if you don't follow them, they can eject you. I don't think that's some break in the social contract. It's just what the rules are. And if the rules don't apply to everyone, including the president, then they aren't really rules in that sense. Like, a rule can't be law for people that you like and a suggestion for those that you do like. You know, that defeats the purpose of rules. So, especially, and for people who are big on, you know, we need a party of law and order and personal responsibility and all this kind of stuff, this seems a fairly simple concept that if you break the rules, you know, that's what happens. And I see a lot of people saying, you know, it's just his opinion, it's this, it's that. Trump isn't a regular person, and I think that has to weigh into the calculus here as well. Trump isn't just some random person in New York City or Kansas or wherever. He's like the president of the United States. And with that, I think
who you have blocked, by the way. Well, I've
always had him blocked because I never wanted to participate in the nonsense that he retweets and spews. It's just it's bad for my mental, so I just block him out. I've blocked him out for like years at this point. But, you know, the level of scrutiny that the president of the United States should be held to, I think, does weigh into the reaction you see from a Twitter, from a Facebook, from Instagram, from every social media platform. You know, there are people who say exactly what Trump says, and they still have access to their Twitter account, I'm sure. You can't ban, as Tony said, like 70 million people. However, the president isn't just some normal guy. At least the office of the presidency isn't a normal office. Like that, the president of the United States, you should be at least as close, and this is the perception anyway, should be at least as close to truth as possible. So if the person with the leader of the free world, all this nonsense that they say,
nuclear codes,
if this guy's spewing falsities, or at least things that can't be proved, then I think it is within your responsibility to take him off. Now, whatever that, I'm quite curious to know. Just wrapping up. What does this do to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? Well, Instagram is Facebook, but what does this do to all of their bottom lines, right? So I think Twitter stock probably went down, or Facebook stock probably went down.
It did. Like
so
the stock went down.
Is this kind of like a righteous play for the short term, or the righteous play in the long term? And I guess we'll see. But it's always a game, whichever way you look at it.
Okay, so final thing here. Okay, so let me bring this up. So I think you know her, Ashli Babbitt, which is the lady that was killed.
Oh, word?
During the whole thing, and basically, there is the video footage of the whole thing. I think she was shot in the throat.
Damn.
Yeah, because I think someone had a brick in the glass, and a security guy, obviously, because I think
she was the one with the brick.
No, someone else was with the brick.
Once you enter the Capitol, okay, I have a point on this, but I'll let you into
it. Yeah, so brick, boom, boom, broke through, and so forth, and I think then the security guy then shot through the window, got her in the throat, she died.
Okay. I think Danny, you're probably going to say the same thing I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean,
which is
no. Yeah. Basically, let me come in because I think we're all on the same page, and this is what I've said. And I think again, I was having a debate with Martin Rosario about this on Instagram, and my thing here is this: it's unfortunate what happened, and condolences to the family.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you trespass into a government building, you have to deal with those consequences. You have to deal with those consequences. You are trespassing on government building and property. And these security guards, these policemen, they have to uphold the law and they have to do a job. Because my thing is this: is that put yourself in the mindset of those security guards. You don't know what the heck is happening. It's very simple for us to watch in the comfort of our homes on Twitter or on YouTube. But in that moment, is this a terrorist invasion? Are these guys armed? How far are these guys going to go? These guys, it's not like if these guys are outside just like throwing up placards. They're literally in the building. Some of these guys are actually armed, and you do not know what the heck these guys can do. So for that police guy, I don't think he intended to kill anyone. It's like this is a warning shot. Because as soon as he hits you, your head guy said, "Go, gone."
Have hope. I don't agree with you. And, and this is why I don't agree with you.
Okay.
Anybody who had... Okay, there are different types of people who carry guns, and I'm sure the military, I'm sure Hitman could explain this better than I can. But this is from my perception from watching movies, looking at stuff. There are different types of people who have guns. Like a police officer has a gun, not necessarily... Like, how would I word this? Anybody who has a gun in a suit is shooting to kill, in my opinion. Right? So like
I get what you mean. What you're talking about are bodyguards, because like the people that
exactly. Like a bodyguard is not shooting a warning shot. A person that has a suit and a tie with a gun, like a James Bond, like those people are trained to kill. I'm shooting once, I'm aiming for a vital place on your body. Like I don't think it's just like a random shot.
So since he was aiming to kill
anybody with that's wearing a suit and tie, that their job is to have a gun, I'll bet you they don't want to pull out the gun. But the moment they pull it out, it's now I'm killing you. Like that's all it is. So once you storm a federal building that has, I don't like using this kind of terminology, but like high profile people like congressmen and
I think the best
senators and whatnot, like they're going to have people by their side that their job is to make sure that this person I'm responsible for, they go home tonight. So if that means I got to put my body on the line, if I got to take you out, that's what it is. A police officer might not have that same mentality of like a bodyguard or just a guy with a suit. And I think the suit is important here. But
okay. Have you listened to what has been said? Does a rioter deserve to be shot?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
it depends on where you riot.
Let me jump.
And how you riot and where you are rioting.
Let me jump.
Okay. Hitman, go for it.
Okay, so on that, I'm going to answer that question first. If you're defending it's defending property versus defending people. If you're defending property, they don't deserve to be shot, unless that property is highly classified materials. Like if you're in a government building, that's other things that were stolen. There were computers stolen from that building with top secret documents on them.
I'd have been looking for an iPhone 12, bro.
But seriously, once you get into the inner chambers, there are 435 representatives of the United States in there, congressmen and women.
People in the presidential chain of succession, like.
And also, there's also the number 2 and number 3, number 2, number 3, and number 4 people that are in the U.S. chain of command that were there. The vice president, number 2. The Speaker of the House, number 3. A lot of people wanted to get their hands on number 3 though, because a lot of people don't like Nancy Pelosi. But the second they put hands on her, that's pretty much a capital offense on them. And you were noticing when those Secret Service agents, they weren't playing around. If you got into the intersection, you're dead. And what was crazy about this case with Ashli Babbitt was that so many people on the right were like saying all this stuff like she was unarmed, blah 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 blah, saying a lot of
ironic
that we say, which is how ironic is that?
How ironic! How ironic!
Now you get it.
No,
White lives matter.
Fucking hell, man.
I have no sympathy. The thing about it though is the difference is I have no sympathy for that, because in this situation she was inside a federal building, basically committing insurrection, a possible coup, and she was and that doorway was the doorway that was between the inner chamber of Congress versus
you gonna get clapped.
These guys are so stupid.
You gonna get clapped.
The audacity.
And like, okay, no, I'm not gonna say that. I'm sorry.
I mean, when you compare, the other thing too is that when you compare that to even a lot of the cases that you see of like these unarmed black men getting shot, like they'll either be walking away. I mean, like you got people that may have got caught in something that may have not required that, but this person was actively being involved in an insurrection. This wasn't even like a random person in the that was in the Congress that got shot. This was somebody that was trying to break through a fucking window.
So I want to add something to this to somewhat respond to AJ's point. I think in terms of should a rioter be shot, I mean, in terms of Black people asking for redress, for reparations, and you know, all the things that occurred during the civil rights movement, I just distinctly remember my history being at a time when Black people were protesting non-violently, and they were still attacked by dogs and things of that nature. And then, you know, car bombs and their houses getting bombed because of their affiliation to whatever was going on. I think that white America has always responded, again, with violence, and this is who they are in general. And part of the reason why I don't want to compare the Capitol riot or mob to, you know, what happened with Black Lives Matter is because Black Lives Matter and how things turned out, it reminds me of the Watts riot in California. It reminds me of, you know, the riots that have occurred like in St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, Wilmington, even Tulsa, where Black people ultimately were defenseless and we're not even using guns, and white people just with guns and knives and all kinds of things, taking people out of jail cells for things that, you know, they should have went to the court system to actually address if they were actually going to accuse somebody of anything. And I think that in terms of using this woman, she's being, to me, I think it's very similar to in the past where white women have been used as these martyrs, have been used as this cause, right, for KKK or whoever. to say like, hey, this is why, we should fight so strongly or violently against the opposing party instead of going head to head about policies and actually writing it out or talking it out as civilized human beings. And so I think to use what Obama's term was for the Baltimore riots, this lady was a thug, in my opinion, just like anybody else who was kicking out a window, just like anybody else who was actively running after Eugene Goodman, the police officer who I was somewhat embarrassed for him, the fact that he was being chased by this mob and you couldn't find any of your coworkers at the time. And I think
the thing about Eugene did a really good job, because just to highlight, that cop, he literally saved all of them.
Yeah, because he led them away. He led them away.
Right, but I think that is very symbol. I think it's very symbolic of Black people going outside of themselves to then cover White people.
I'm telling you, Tony, if Eugene was in the suit, one of them dudes is getting clapped. I don't care. Guys in suits with guns are more dangerous than police officers. This guy, his whole thing is like, just go away. I don't even want to be here. Being a cop is trash. That's probably what he's thinking.
And you know what?
A person with a suit is like, I wish a person probably would come through that door.
And you know what? The more pertinent thing that I want to get across about this lady, this thug, this gangster, I think we forget that she is a war veteran, I believe.
Yeah.
We forget
she's
that
Air Force by the comments.
Right. So this idea that she's just so innocent, and I think that she's like so many other, like how many senators do they have to find that were active in this protest or in this mob event or riot, if you will? How many times do they have to identify people who are House representatives, people who are previous or former governors who are active in this present? I think they just found a guy that was and he wore his
two representatives. Even one of the Also, one thing that you should put up as well is look up.
Daniel, I wanted to hiss so badly. I wanted to hiss.
Say her name like how? Don't disrespect.
Sorry. No, because you see, this is the thing that just annoys me is that how people bring up like, oh my gosh, she's a veteran and so forth. She's a veteran. How could she and so forth? Like, no. Like, again, this goes back to this is all about white privilege, and like it was a point that Daniel even made that if blacks put a pinky through the door, you're on the news. 50 blacks.
I saw footage where the police officers actually allowed people into the Capitol space.
Yeah. You see, I don't know how deep we want to go, but these guys were allowed in. But see, the point I want to make it is that the thing that just gets me is the audacity of whiteness. The audacity of whiteness that you have such a intense superiority complex, such delusion of your whiteness that you think you could go to a government building and stop a voting process. It's like, what did you think would happen?
But they were being encouraged by the president of the United States. Why wouldn't they think they could do it?
But again, not just the president. There were multiple.
Oh yeah, there's hella people, senators, state senators, governors. Like,
right,
all
of them if you're going to do it.
But see now this now goes to
trial by combat.
No. But see, this now goes to how much blame do you put on a Trump when you're dealing with the adults? If we're dealing with 7-8-year-olds,
enough. I put enough blame to where he's culpable. But obviously, again, I find it odd that the whole personal responsibility, law and order people are now finding it tough to find. Oh my goodness! Like these guys broke the rules. Like that to me is like a crazy. I don't know. Just.
And you know what? To me, what's really sad about all of this to me is that now you have people like Bush coming out, speaking out against this, and we ultimately forget, like, we didn't like him either. Like, he was doing things actively against black people, and now he looks like a saint because we keep hailing Trump as like the ultimate devil. There are multiple demons in all of this.
Tony, do you know what's scary? Is there are guys like, Colin Powell and this kind of like the Mitt Romney, those types of Republicans in the world, were like the Republican Party has shifted so far to the right where those kinds of Republicans are now finding a home in the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party is now shifting full white nationalism. So like, where do black people, if you believe in the political system, I don't believe in it. I've never voted, all that kind of stuff. But if black people are indeed trying to use this, two-party system in order to get things from the government or concessions or whatever the case may be, how can you align with people like a Colin Powell, a Condoleezza, like all of these center in air quote Republicans? Like they now have a home inside of the Democratic Party, it seems like. How you can't get freedom with those people?
The incoming president is
perfect
including
example
them in his cabinet. Like he's taking on people who previously worked for Bush.
Why did you use this picture, Half-Hope?
Tony, please continue.
You might be getting
But seriously, like Joe is like, and I get it that he wants to bring the country together, but like the fact like we're hailing like, oh, because he worked with McCain's wife in Arizona, that like that's okay, blah blah blah, and like to an extent, like if the Republican Party is so bad, why are you including them into your incoming presidency? Why are you allowing them to have voice and agency in how you maneuver in the future? If they were, and again, we're talking about Bush. We're talking about a person, like Kanye said, like he doesn't like black people. Like we were all on one accord that we dislike this president. And then we see pictures of like Michelle sharing candy with him and they
hugging and shit at the
they're really good friends. Apparently, like Michelle and thing are very
buying
good
his paintings and probably
and we just completely forget. We just have amnesia. And again, it's this idea that like if we just get rid of Trump has been the problem this entire time, as if there have not been people before Trump was even there. Like, that's the problem that I have with all of this. Yes, Trump is a horrible person. Yes, Trump, in ways, I think that he phrases things so that he's not seen as culpable of inciting the riots. Yes, but the fact that you can just look at him and then forget about Ted Cruz, forget about the Mitt Romneys and all of those other people, or the Republicans that are still backing Trump, the people who are going to, like, when it gets to the Senate, who are not going to say, yay for the impeachment. Like they enable him to do what he does. And who do you think that he's getting advisement from?
Well, see, I think the if we're looking at it from like a political science standpoint, perhaps, I don't think like the Ted Cruz's of the world and the Josh Hawleys of the world, or whatever the junior senator from Missouri is, I think they're more looking at it like, okay, the country is quite split. If you look at the popular vote numbers from the past election, it's pretty much 50-50, give or take 1 million people here or there, right? There are millions, 70 plus, who voted for Trump. So there are some Republicans like the Cotton, I think he's from Alabama or perhaps Arkansas. He didn't vote for like there was a vote that the Senate had whether they were gonna overturn or look to overturn the results in Arizona, Pennsylvania, all these types of states that would have flipped the Electoral College in a favorable way for Trump. He was like, I'm not willing to go that far. There are some Republicans like a Ted Cruz, like the one from Missouri, who are trying to capture the very people who stormed the place that they do business. So I think what we're seeing is not necessarily people trying to protect Trump, but they're trying to capture a lot of the people who like Trump to come vote for them or support them perhaps in the next 4 years when they try to run for president. And I think that's part of what we're seeing. So like a Lindsey Graham's not going to run for president. So there's no incentive, there's no historical incentive for him to back Trump in something that's never going to look good historically. But the guy from Missouri, who's in his 40s, probably is thinking Hawley, who's already thinking about 2024. He's trying to say, okay, there's 75 million people out here. How can I get them to vote for me? Well, I'm going to back the guy that they like. And that's another piece of what we're seeing.
The problem with it, though, is that, like, I think when you look at it from a bigger picture standpoint, you're starting to see, if you look at American politics, there's a big fracture going on right now between the Democrat and Republicans. And right now, the Republicans are looking like they're splitting into the far right Trumpist style party, and in the regular Republican Party, and even the left, like with AOC and Squad and the progressives, and Bernie, they're all split. They're all looking at. There's some of them looking to split up from the Democrat Party,
Yeah.
and then you have your standard Democrats, and we could probably see that in the near future.
Do you guys think having a more than two-party system is beneficial? Like, do you think having, if there were 4 distinct parties, so you had like your, and not even that these are far, but just in the perception of how we view them, far right, center left, far left. Like, do you think if you had names to those particular persuasions, do you think that would benefit the country?
I think, honestly, there are other countries that have proven this. I think like Denmark has like 7 different parties or something like that, and even Norway, where they have these multiple party systems. And I think that, again, the reason why Bernie had to succumb to joining the Democratic Party was ultimately because he understood that people were so, not necessarily childish, but
it was childish.
Like he could like everything that he was saying essentially was for the lower class people. And I think that people are so selfish, and people are not thinking collectively about the overarching, like, okay, helping the whole of society to, rise up. And I think that if people actually cared, or if people were as moralistic as they try to portray themselves to be, then we would see Bernie where he is. And I think that he would not have had to transition himself to the Democratic Party, and he would have stayed a third party candidate. But I think that Americans believe so much in this divisiveness that is the Democratic Party and versus the Republican Party. Like, we depend on that. And I don't think that people have enough mental capacity to really understand the difference between the different parties, because people still don't even understand how the government orchestrates itself in general, i.e. like how the Electoral College works.
How much time do we have Hope?
Like 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Wait, okay. But very, very quickly, because I think someone said it in the chat. I think Trump's actually about to make a speech somewhere. So he's about to make some kind of live speech somewhere. So I don't know what's. I told you, look, the guy, he ain't done, man. So just to, but just quickly on Tony's points, and then last thing I want us to talk about, but on Tony's points, people like to keep things very simple. In a perfect world, people can engage their brains, research, and realize that, what is this third party? What is this fourth party? What is this fifth party? But as Tony just said, you see this even in sports. People love the division. Either or, black, white, binary, left, right. Keep it simple. I am here. You are there. People don't like to complicate things. People don't like to intellectualize things. So that is why the 1% know how to control. And that is their skill. They know how to control the 99%. The 99%, mostly 9 to 5, very busy, have other things to do. They don't have time to really be like, what is the Democrats about? What are they really about, and so forth. It's like, hey, left, good. Hey, I like this guy. He says the right things, cool. And that 1% know that if we do these things, we can keep them in line. And the two-party system, it's a very easy thing to digest. And the 99% just wants to digest things very easily. That's why that thing is there. So, last 5 minutes, what are you going to say? Trump, what happens, man? He says he's not going to be at the inauguration and so forth. Once Biden's president, like, what is the next thing? Is this civil war? Is this Trump's TV station, TV network? Is this a Trump podcast? What does he now do with this 71 million that's voted for him? Like, what does February, March, April look like in America with regards to Trump?
For Trump, he's gonna go play golf. That's what he's gonna go do and enjoy the last however many years of his money. I don't know what he's gonna do, but it's gonna involve golf. If I could double back though quickly, and I don't know how important this is, but I feel like I want to say it. So we can't divorce money from the institution that is the Democratic Party and the institution that is the Republican Party. There are many people who get paid because of how big those two institutions are. And there's a thing where, like, the Green Party or the Libertarian Party will jump up every election. I think with Hillary Clinton, I think there was was it Gary Johnson who was collecting votes in all these different places and whatnot. Like, you have to have a certain threshold, like in the poll numbers. I think it's 15%, which is pretty hard to hit for a third party, in order to get your candidate
it's 5%.
5%, not 15%.
It's 5%.
Wow. So you have to get 5% in order to get into the debates. And the debate is obviously a big stage. Obviously, we see like Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, or Joe Biden, Donald Trump. But imagine if you had other people who were given the platform to voice their platforms. That would be interesting. But the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are teamed up on this. They're clicked on this, that we don't want any other party to come in. And I wonder if this is more like a game of chicken to see which party is going to disintegrate first. Are the Republicans going to have to split up and, the kind of Tea Party ethos is going to like break off and become its own chunk? And then you have two vying pieces on the right, but then that automatically gives an intact Democratic Party the advantage in every election. So you can't do that. And the Democratic Party can't split because then that gives the Republican Party the advantage because you're splitting the vote. So it's like a game of chicken between which one is going to disintegrate first and break off into pieces. And they aren't doing it, I think, because of the money. But as for this guy on the screen, I don't know. He can go fuck himself, man.
Anyone else want to jump in before we end this?
Yeah. So I will address the Trump thing, but I did see the one message in regards to Charles Glenn saying, "Are we really bringing up Kanye?" I think so. The reason why I brought him up, as crazed as people make him out to be and all of that, I do think that his point was very valid in terms of not only Bush doesn't care about black people, but Bush represented the United States government as a whole. And so I think the fact that he could put his career on the line and speak out, that is admirable. And I think that there are several celebrities who now they feel at liberty to speak how they want to speak. But I think like Kanye definitely set precedents in terms of trying to support black people in a certain way, and even speaking out against like big businesses that use black people as tropes to then sell their products and get more money, while then still holding black people down as far as those who are actually advertising on their behalf. And then there was another comment about, well, don't you remember that McCain supported Obama, blah, 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 when the one lady said something about Obama being Muslim and not being a real American and all that. I would say this, I'm not interested in performative measures, especially somebody who has a history of, disavowing like the MLK holiday for whatever reason and trying to make up for, his lack of black support in general. And I think there are lots of people who are politicians, i.e. Joe Biden, who have a career of disenfranchising black people, and now that they attach themselves to black people or say something in light of black people in a positive light, I'm supposed to forget about your history. Now I'm supposed to do away with you because of what you did, and I think that we should treat the people who did whatever at the Capitol the same way. Like you should go to jail, you should lose your right to vote. Like if you're going to disrupt the American government, we should disrupt your life equally. And I think that in terms of what Trump is going to do in the future, I think that he's going to do what he does best. He's going to make money. And I think, again, this idea behind like, let's impeach him, it's going to affect him so much as if it's going to hurt his ego. Again, before he was president, he was assisting future presidents financially. And I think that he's going to continue to do that in terms of platforms that he's going to use to speak out and whatever. He's not even going to have to do that because the media is going to be so craved for the craziness and looking for news that they're going to go search for him. They're going to go ask him what he wants because they need the drama. They need everything to disassociate you from what's really going on. They need to mislead you, misdirect you, all of that stuff. Instead of looking at Kamala to support black people, instead of looking at Joe Biden to atone for what he's did in the past, they're going to continue to go back to Trump and talk about all of that, again, to use that as a comparison to say, well, at least he's not Trump. You may not have, living standards up to, the rest of white America, but, at least he's not Trump, at least he's, and there's going to be this continued excuse. Mm-hmm. And I think that Trump is always going to be that convenience for people who, have a large dissent against him. And it's just unfortunate. But I do think that he's going to continue to make money, and he's going to continue to influence the election process and future politicians, because that's his whole life. He's a businessman. This is what they do. The businesses run America, not the government.
And round us off, Hitman.
This can turn out two ways. It can turn out very bad for Trump. It could turn out okay for Trump. And one of the things I will say is this: by the end of 100 years from now, when our great grandchildren are looking at this and finding out about this, I mean, the history books are not going to look kindly on him. I mean, he's the only president. He's going to be the only president in our history that has been, what is this? Has been will have been impeached twice. On top of that, he'll also have the stain of this attack on the Capitol in his presidency and COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, but as far as like the near future, I mean, it could turn out okay for him. I mean, if you looking at the current structure of social media, I'm thinking he could possibly do a joint venture with the guy from Parler, and rebrand Parler, and try to put that in his name. I think that would benefit him a lot.
Do you know what I think's coming? I think TNN, Trump News Network,
100%.
So instead of CNN, TNN, and they try to take away from Fox News.
It's like Daniel. Like, I didn't understand when he said, "Oh, he's going to go to golf." No, the obvious play here is, my gosh, which is why I try to remind people he used his personal Twitter account, not the presidential Twitter account,
right,
all through the 4 years. I now have these people. These not are now. Anymore. Oh, no, but he still has. Because it's like, hey man, I am for Trump. I'm not really for America, I'm for Trump, I'm for this dude. And when he sets up his news network and so forth, you know, have a lot of guys. So hence why it's going to be very interesting in America, because right there in some kind of freaking spectrum, you're going to have this network that is just going to be causing riptides and so forth during Biden's presidency. So it's going to be very interesting to see what America will look like and how much carnage he can still cause in the following months, because 100%, you think that this was his greatest victory. All through his life, he didn't really achieve anything. All the hotels and everything, that was just given to you by the Trump name.
You know what scares
Becoming
me,
president, this was the biggest victory, yeah?
Like, you know how like you get John Adams, John Quincy Adams, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush. If his son,
oh my God,
becomes president, I think that would be quite interesting. But again, I don't know how much stock I put into U.S. presidents, but I'm interested in people's interest in the narratives, and that's kind of my interest. But yeah,
all right, guys,
Donald Trump Jr. for president in like
2028. Before we leave, one last thing. This is one last quick thing. Yeah, the Confederate flag guy is still at large. FBI is looking for him. I think
no snitching, hitman. No snitching, man. No snitching.
That guy.
We maintain that no matter who. No, I'm kidding.
But $20,000 if you can find him.
Oh shit! It's like, where's Waldo?
Yeah, come on, they've got to raise that, man. Let's give him like 50 or 60. I mean, look, they've seen his face.
Dead
they know
or
what he
alive
looks like.
hitman, or it's just not. You got to find him. Like,
he's got to find him tips.
Damn. Hey, man,
all right, guys, look, but it's been good, man. Guys, thank you for joining for this impromptu
look,
state
if the
black
FBI
thing,
is gonna catch you anyway, I would just get my best friend to turn me in, and then he gets the money.
Oh yeah,
I go to
that
jail,
whole thing.
And then I'll give you $5,000. But
all right, guys, thanks for Daniel, Hitman, Tony, man. We'll hopefully be back here next Tuesday, man. So Trumpo, it is what it is, man. Guys, peace out, stay true, stay real. One, we're out. Peace.